exactly sure, scholars and theologians are not exactly sure where Tarshish was at. What we do know, it's the opposite of direction of what he was supposed to have been going. You understand what I'm saying? It was the opposite direction. His call was to go to Nineveh. He goes down to Joppa, gets his ticket. Instead of going east, he is going west. Understand here that the point here is that Jonah has departed from the will of God. He has departed from the will of God. Let's think about this for a moment. Let's bring this down to our level for a moment. Departing from the will of God. Do you know the point in time when you departed from God's will in your life? Can I tell you what I know? At some point, you will probably struggle with that. How do I know? Because there have been times in my life I've departed from God's will. At what point did you depart from God's will? I hope maybe you never come to that point. But honestly, if we're honest with ourselves, all through our walk, there will be times, no matter how small they may be, it may seem to be, you will depart from God's will. Let me ask you again, do you know the point of departing from God's will in your life? All too often, we're like Jonah. We're like Jonah. God commissions us with a calling that we don't necessarily like. How many folks have felt the call of God on their heart? And they respond to God's, Lord, can't you send somebody else? Surely there's somebody else that can do what you're asking me to do. Oh yeah, there is somebody else. Understand, God's calling you. God's calling you. God commissions us for a calling that we may not like, one that we do our best to run from. Let me give you a spiritual truth here. Understand this spiritual truth. The moment you decide not to accept the call of God, maybe you say, brother, I'm really not sure when I've ever departed from God's will. Let me give you a good definition here. The moment you decide not to accept the call of God on your life, no matter how great or how small, you listen to what I'm saying? Then the moment you decide not to accept the call of God, no matter how great or how small, that God has given you, is the place where you departed from God's will. You hear what I'm saying? And it doesn't have to be just that big calling of God. It could be just as small as being faithful in a job that you've asked to do in church. Oh, brother, now don't go there. Hardest committee to serve on any Baptist church? The nominating committee. You're on the nominating committee. Nobody wants to be your friend for a month because you're afraid you're going to ask. The moment you depart from God's will, the moment you decide not to accept God's calling, no matter how great or how small, is the moment you depart from God's will. Downward trail of backsliding. This is where backsliding, where we become backslidden. Folks, you know what I've learned also in my life? Some of the meanest folks in the world are backslidden Christians. Backslidden because I know they're like Jonah. God's calls on them and they try to run the other direction. Church, it's always so. The moment a child of God disobeys the call of God, they enter into an area of being backslid. Let me give you another spiritual truth here. The child of God is either on higher ground or he's downward bound. Either higher ground or downward bound. One of the two. Understand, there is no neutral ground here. Understand here, you're either one or the other. There is no neutral ground. You know, there's places in the world where there's. I heard a story about Israel becoming a nation here a while back, and there's other areas that are like this, but this just comes to mind that when the Israelis first took part of Jerusalem back in the 67 war, I believe, and they had their treaty they had with this other nation, there was this area that nobody owned. It was kind of a no man's land. Understand, in our lives, we like to think about that.